Good day, viewers. You're welcome to my Liberation Gospel. For some reasons, I wasn't able to do this topic that I scheduled for yesterday. But I'm happy that you've been patient with me. So I want us to look briefly on the issue of Buhari, Buratai, and Operation Python Dance, killings, what we must do. And some of you do know who Buhari is, the president of Nigeria. Ukachukwu Buratai is the chief of army staff of the Nigerian army. But before we continue, I want you to listen to this tape. Is an interview and a report of the Amnesty International extrajudicial killings report against the Nigerian military. I want you to listen to that before we do continue.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. I have with me Morayo Adebayo, who is a researcher at Amnesty International. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's my pleasure to be here.
Now, your group alleges that the Nigerian military, I think more specifically, has killed 177 IPOB members and 240 Borno citizens, Borno residents. How did you come about your figures?
First of all, just a bit of a correction on the 177 IPOB members. What we have said is at least 150. I understand, we saw that there were reports saying that we said 177, but that is adding up figures that were, repeated. So that's where the error came from. But what we have said is 150. And how we came about that is through our thorough research process, investigations in which we spoke to members of the IPOB group, family members of those who were dead. We also had forensic experts help us in analyzing these pictures and videos. We analyzed over 87 videos and at least almost 200 pictures, in which all of this evidence putting together shows that at least 150 IPOB members have been killed by members of the Nigerian military.
You were able to verify that they were all IPOB members?
Yes, we have a thorough research process in which we have to triangulate, which means that if we find information from one angle, we have to find two other angles to corroborate this, at least two other angles. It can be more. And apart from the research process, which is very thorough, there is also different levels of quality assurance, which means that before Amnesty International puts out any report, we have thoroughly verified it, and as an organization, we're able to throw our weight behind it.
So this is over a period of how long?
This research that we did was over a period of, it was from December 2015 to September, October 2016. So it was over that period that all of this happened. The deaths that we recorded happened particularly, majority of the deaths, not all of them, in 3 instances where they were celebrating the anniversary of their anniversary of the Biafra. And then there was another remembrance thing that they did. I can't recall exactly the details, but three instances recorded the highest casualties. And then there was an instance where bodies were dumped in a pit, and this was reported to the police also. And so that also adds up to all of these things. And in respect of the 240 people killed in detention, this is because the conditions in detentions are bad in the Northeast. And so people die as a result of that. And the 240 figure that we released for last year is the lowest compared to previous years. So it's not something new. It's something that has been happening. And we gathered these details from monitoring of the prison conditions daily.
So you say this is 240 people of suspected terrorists?
Well, people in detention that the Nigerian military claims to be suspected terrorists. We don't know what they are, but these are people who have been held in detention centers.
Now, look at these figures. I mean, the Nigerian military, of course, has denied this. I mean, they say that they don't know how you've come about your figures. When you're carrying out your research, do you also, find out from them what methods were used. And looking at one of the videos you posted online, you see it would seem that there was a mix of the Nigerian police and the Nigerian military in some of the attempts to quell this protest or quell the rallies. Do you also, do you share the blame equally, or do you think that it could have been perpetrated more by one security agency than the other?
The first thing that we need to understand is that the military is not trained for civil disturbances. And so their response to civil disturbances are often high-handed and excessive use of force. So take, for instance, the case of the Biafra agitators. These are peaceful protesters. And then you saw in the video where they were being circled by men armed with guns. And so the response of Nigerian military has typically been high-handedness, and that is why they are not equipped and they're not trained for civil disturbances. And so what we are calling for as Amnesty International is that the police needs to be equipped to take care of the civil disturbances, regardless of the level that it is, and so that the military is withdrawn. Otherwise, we'll continue to see these types of things happening.
What would you say, looking at it's all very, it's all very, the different layers, when people talk about this protest, I mean, when you look at the figure, 150, from your corrections, it's quite a lot. Which one of the protests would you say recorded the highest number of casualties? I know you did say that the Remembrance Day, one of the protests, I think that happened somewhere in Onitsha. But was it right there in the rally that this casualties were recorded? Because some people would have said that it shouldn't be coming as news right now. People should have known about this number of killings even before Amnesty International reported it.
I believe Premium Times reported it even before we reported it. And so it's not coming as news. What has happened is that we have been able to put the figures together. And like I explained earlier, this 150 that we have put out doesn't come from one instance. It comes from several instances over time. And we have documented that in the report.
What about the state governments? I mean, are you able to liaise with the state governments with you?
We have been calling on the state governments also to set up independent investigations. If the military has challenged it, as they have said, they've come out to totally deny it. What that has done is it has shut the door on dialogue. So we are calling on the state governments in whose states this happened to independently investigate. The military cannot investigate itself. The security forces cannot investigate themselves. So we need an impartial investigation to happen. And that's what we're calling for.
Because one would have thought that by now, when you look at the number of citizens who have died, I mean, if, for instance, in one protest you recall about 50 or thereabout casualties, the state government should by now have spoken up.
And that's why we need other people to join us in calling for this. We need you guys, we need the other CSOs to join us in this call. Because unless pressure is put on government officials, we have seen that there is little chances of impartial and independent investigations happening. See, for example, the case of the IMEN protest. An investigation was set up. And at the end of the day, the committee made its recommendations. But when the state government released its findings, I mean, its white paper on those recommendations, it basically rejected almost all the recommendations made by the committee. So we need other people to join their voices to ours in calling for these independent and impartial investigations and accountability afterwards.
How are these bodies buried? In Borno State, in the southeast of the country, where this...
Many of them are secretly buried. Sometimes, so for example, in the southeast, there was a situation where about 17 bodies were dumped in a pit.
By the Nigerian military?
Yes. We don't know if it's by the Nigerian military or by the police, but these people were definitely killed in instances that suggest that they were killed by security forces. The forensic analysis that we were able to do.
How were you able to find the bodies in the pit?
Bodies are in the pit, it's in a public place. They weren't covered. So people reported that their bodies here. And our researchers went over to see it.
And they were able to suspect, or they were able to draw the connection between the bodies that were in the pit and the...
Like I said, you identify, if you see a body, people are able to identify that these are IPOB members, this person went for so-and-so meeting and never came back. There was a raid on that meeting on that day. And so you're able to connect the dots. When you see 5 people who were in a particular meeting and their bodies in the same place, you're able to connect dots. And we don't just connect dots based on these assumptions and circumstantial evidence. We also go beyond that and do forensic analysis of these things. So we had pictures of those bodies sent to, because of course we couldn't move the bodies, we don't have the permission to move the bodies, pictures of those bodies sent to forensic experts who helped us to analyze the circumstances in which they could possibly have died and the time of death.
Let's talk about the circumstances. What would you say in many situations were the cause of death?
Many situations, cause of death were bullet wounds. Some were as a result of I think force. I'm not pretty sure, but many of them were bullet wounds.
With your engagement now, the Nigerian military, I mean, this is not the first time you have released anything damning on the Nigerian military. How would you say your engagement is with Nigerian security agencies, especially when reports like this come out?
As part of our processes, every time that we have an issue to investigate, when we're conducting the research, in the process of conducting research, we reach out to the security agency involved or whatever government agency is involved. We say so and so is what we are investigating, and we have so and so questions for you. And so it's up to them to respond to us or not respond. Sometimes they have responded, sometimes they have invited us to meetings, sometimes they have simply acknowledged the letters and not responded. So, and then before we publish any report, we then have an obligation to send a summary of our key findings back to the institution that we are alleging these crimes against or these violations against. And we say, can we have your comments on this, this, and this? And if we have further questions, we ask those questions at this point in time. And we also let them know that we are preparing to launch a report. So it's up to them then at that point to respond to us and say, okay, so and so is this and that. But oftentimes they don't respond. Like I said, sometimes they invite us to meetings, but they're never able to really, respond to the questions that we have. So what we are saying is that if they have challenges to the facts that we have come out with, then they need to also come out with their own facts and explain to us the methodology by which they arrived at it. Honestly, when we put out a report, we always explain our methodology in the report. And anybody that takes 5 minutes to do some research will find that we explain how much communication there has been between us and the government, we explain the methodology, and we also put in recommendations there. So it's not about always trying to make the government look bad. It's about holding the government accountable to its human rights obligations.
Now, in Borno State, you say that 204 is the lowest figure that
240.
Beg your pardon, is the lowest figure that you reported on so far. So, to you, would you think that there is some improvement in terms of how detainees are being handled?
Yes, I guess that suggests that there is some improvement in terms of how detainees are being handled. Or there might be other circumstances that led to the reduced number, but it primarily suggests that there is an improvement in the detention facilities if we are recording lesser deaths now.
I watched the last engagement with the press conference you had with the security agencies. One of the things that I think was the police officer who was there. I think we'll take that question when we return from this break. Do join us again.
Yeah, thank you for listening to that patiently. It was an interview granted to a researcher with the Amnesty International, and it further leads us into what we want to talk about, and that's I said Buhari, Buratai, and Operation Python Dance Igbo killings, what we must do. And many of you, if you're a Nigerian or if you're conversant with the state of affairs in the Nigerian polity, you will understand who Buratai is, the chief of army staff. Yes, Nigeria is known for extrajudicial killings from time immemorial, since the military incursion into civil administration. But this era of Buhari has really escalated things. We've seen killings, especially in this time when we are in civilian rule, so there's no need for that. I decided to play that tape. There are many other tapes that I have within reach, and some that have been sent to me. I said what we must do. What we must do in the sense that these things are extrajudicial killings. There are many other killings. It's not only on IPOB issue. We have the killings of Shiites in Kaduna, and that one up to this day, the leader of the Shiites, Ibrahim el-Zakzaki, has been in detention. You could imagine he was partially blind. He was partially blinded by the shooting. He was shot, and he's still in the hospital, and he haven't been released. And this box to what I have said from time immemorial, since the Buhari came to power again. He's a man who has an agenda, and he's using the instruments of government to fight a personal battle, to fight a religious war, to get involved in ethnic problems. Because if we say we are in a democratic period, I don't see the reason why the army, which should be a professional body, the army which should not be biased, it should be apolitical. And when it comes to, I know the Nigerian army has always had this longer truth of having incursion, being involved in civil administration, because most of the Nigerian elites today metamorphosed from wearing military khaki to civilian abada. So you can imagine what they are like, role models to other the guys coming up, and they can't preach about professionalism when they usurped civilian administration. For instance, Buhari was involved in a military coup that removed a civilian government, and he's back again. So what is he going to preach? I mean, you can imagine why some of them has always been partisan, and the military is no longer that professional force which we are told that it is, because there's this quota system, there's this bias policy with recruitment. Sections of the country are more, they are more in number in the military. You can even see the fact that in the past, when military personnel are retired because of their involvement in things that doesn't bring unity and progress to the country, a new regime will come in and restate them, like Buhari did it. Many guys in the military that were retired during the time of the last administration, because of their involvement in Boko Haram. The last president of Nigeria was open to say, President Goodluck Jonathan, at a time made an announcement, he made a broadcast. He said that members of his government, some members of his cabinet are sympathetic to Boko Haram. So you can imagine a president of a country saying that, but because of the fact that Nigeria is considered in a way that you need to get involved, you need to involve every part of the country for the sake of unity, he let the sleeping dog lie. He didn't go about disgracing some of these people that were sympathetic to Boko Haram. But today, you can see that members, goons and sympathizers of Buhari will say Buhari has the right not to appoint certain people or certain sections of the country because they didn't support him. You can imagine during the time of Jonathan made a public announcement that members of his administration, some members, were sympathetic to Boko Haram. But because of the way Nigeria is formed, you have to carry people along, because this is a country that is diverse in background, diverse in people. You can't just run, you cannot be an ethnic president, a president of the House of Fulani, or president of the House of Fulani, and some part, of Yoruba, or a president that says something and do another. So you say that's why I said Buhari has ulterior motive, because if he didn't have ulterior motive, you can't tell me that some of the extrajudicial killings by the Nigerian army will keep going on. At least we witnessed a very low degree of this kind of things during the last regime. Whatever we do accuse the last regime, they weren't involved in extrajudicial killings. The fight was against Boko Haram, and Boko Haram amassed swaths of territory. At the time, Boko Haram took over almost 2 states in the northeastern region of the country. And today, nobody talks about it. Boko Haram is even controlling about 9 local governments. They're not telling Nigerians the truth. But first, I want us to come out on this killings of Operation Python dance. But meanwhile, this regime is known for extrajudicial killings. Killing, without having recourse to the law, without the Nigerian army under Lieutenant General Ukachukwu Yusuf Buratai has been a lawless gang. They've been doing what they don't have recourse to civil and military rules of laws of engagement. You are aware that the camp of refugees from the northeast, refugees as a matter of Boko Haram issue, were bombed. Were you not aware that refugee camp was bombed sometime? That should be early this year or last year. If you check it, you get to get that fact very well. Then in 2015, we're aware of Zakazaki's members, his followers, how they were massacred. What was their problem? That they were demonstrating and they said that the chief of army staff will not cross that road. Yes, whatever happened? Is it the only way to send them out of the road? Was it to kill hundreds of them and nothing happened? This cannot continue happening in a civil society, a government which we say that is a civilian government. We cannot continue to allow this to happen. Hence, I've decided to call on some measures on how these things will be documented, because whoever is at the helm of these massacres and killings must be brought to book. We cannot keep him quiet, because if we keep quiet, this will continue happening. We can't just get in animals and jihadists, murderers into the Nigerian army to be killing at random without restriction. Boko Haram is there to be sought after. You can't just be killing people who, because you have issues with them, because you have religious differences, because you want to cow them down, because you are against their agitation. That is unlawful, it is inhuman, and it is unprofessional of the Nigerian army. So I decided to look at this issue. First, we must understand who is in charge, that Buhari is a fundamentalist. I've always said that, and I don't mince words. From his actions, from his characters, body language, and his appointments, the facts speak for himself. I decided to play parts of the Amnesty International extrajudicial reports on the Nigerian army. You can go and look for it yourself. Then you really get what I'm talking about. So this the issue about Shiites. The Shiites said that over 1,000 members were killed. After the issue on the road, they had to invade Ibrahim el-Zakazaki's house, and even a mosque that Shiites worship, and it was destroyed. And the man who is in charge, his children were even killed, and he's partially blind, and at the moment he's still in the hospital. I don't know if this is a professional army or a group of jihadists. So that's part of it. And looking at there's a, if you go to my wall on Facebook, not on this live page, on my main wall, Ukachukwu Okorie, I decided I instructed our admins at African World newspaper to post videos relating to this extrajudicial killings, interviews of Nigerian military personnel, and sheikhs and the spokesperson of the Nigeria Islamic movement of Nigeria. I mean, the movement that Shiites operate. You get to understand different versions or accounts of what happened in that. And coming to the issue of IPOB killings, this is to tell you the manner of approach of the Nigerian army under Buratai. It's been an army of killers. It's an army that doesn't obey the rules of engagement. I watched a particular video. In which the IPOB women were at Abereba. They were at Abereba, and the women there were meeting, and some members of the Nigerian, some personnel of the Nigerian army invaded the place and tore the women's clothes, got them naked, and you could see they had some military vehicles that they removed the plates numbers, removed the insignia of Nigerian army. Even the soldiers had no name and badge, but they're wearing Nigerian military camouflage. You see, things that's very much unprofessional are being done by the Nigerian army. And these are the things we've started documenting, and I will advise you to send some of this evidence, pictures, videos to Africa World News at gmail.com. I'm going to write it on the space here so that you can get this email very well, because we cannot keep quiet to this kind of issues, because it will continue happening if it's not checked, and the personnel that are involved, if they are not brought to book. What we can do is to send this report to the appropriate quarters, international bodies, for documentation, because what Africa World News at Gmail. So you can I've pinned it there. So it's very important that we send some of our facts, and that's one of the things I said. What we must do. Many of you do remember the Chibok girls. The charade called the Chibok girls. We've seen that recently. Some of the principal actors that saw to that embarrassment of the last government, some of them are beginning to confess how they organized that. That it was because you could imagine hundreds of girls taking, there was no security, and even the teachers in the schools, none of their kids were involved, despite the fact that these teachers, their children, were still in the school. The governor never provided security. I mean, those in charge never provided security, and the girls that were so-called kidnapped are all Christians, no Muslim girls. They were forced, raped, impregnated, a lot of things that happened. And this is what I've been talking about before. I talked something like this on sexual jihad. How these guys, how the Connaught, particularly the Fulanis, used in the tactics that they used in subjugating the Hausas, and they're extending it they're extending it to the rest of Nigeria. Middle belts, and they want to come into the south and the southeast fully, and that's why they're using every tool at their disposal to intimidate people. So what we must do first, I want you to get in contact with all those that that were shot, of relatives of all those that were shot in Abia State, in River State by the Operation Python Dance. A new union has to be formed among the relatives. Some of you may remember the issue about the Lockerbie bombing. The Lockerbie bombing. The UK flight that the bombing, Muammar Gaddafi masterminded the bombing. Relatives of the victims still, they maintained the union, and later they were still compensated. And some of these are sought to the West, making sure that Muammar Gaddafi and co paid for that. So all those that are involved in extrajudicial murder of our people will pay for it dearly when the time comes. We're not keeping quiet at that. We are documenting all these things, even those helping them, because you can't tell me that the civilians who are going about doing lawful things, protesting without arms, not killing anybody, not shooting anybody, will be summarily shot and nothing is done. No, we will not take that. So that's why we must get to members of, relatives of those that are slain, and those that we are still looking for up to today. There are many youths that gone missing up till this day, because the Nigerian army raised a tactics whereby when they kill, they take the corpse so that there won't be evidence. And there have been many people that are disclosed missing. The families. I want you people to find a way to reach us, send us message, or find a way to give us more information about. We are gathering a data of all these people, the dead and the missing, because we need to form an organization that will bind the relatives of all those that were killed by the Nigerian army, especially by the Operation Python dance in the East. A lot of people died, and many are still being looked for till this day. So keeping in tabs, relatives of those that died and those that are missing, it's very, very important. It's very important. It's extremely important in bringing the culprits to book, because we cannot just keep quiet and this killing will continue. We must have to do something. We must have to act. We must record and document these evidences for the proper offices, so that when we come against them, we'll have our facts. So that's one. And two, it's important that we you give us more information with regards to killings, operation. Those of you who are at home and seeing the actions of this military, if you can get us information, pictorial, verifiable news and clips of this. We are gathering these videos and materials, not only the ones that are going viral, but there are ones which we cannot even post on Facebook because of Facebook rules. Some of them are getting across to social media to keep banning some of our pages, but Facebook is not the only social media who will find appropriate measures and appropriate medium to reach the public. That's in order to get our messages ahead. I'm going to drop a link to my page so that you can watch some of this. There was a 5-man panel instituted by the Nigerian Human Rights Commission, in which Buratai appeared, in which he couldn't even give a good account of why thousands, hundreds of Shiites were killed just by blocking his convoy, as if he is a god. By blocking his convoy, he ordered his commanders to shoot hundreds of armless civilians. So that should make us not to keep quiet. That should make us to understand who we are dealing with. And they brought the same attitude to the East. But unfortunately, we will not keep quiet at that. From Buratai to his commanders, we need information about them, because they cannot go scot-free on this, unless Nigerians want to give up on their freedom. Because you cannot say we are in a civilian regime and the army will be shooting aimlessly. They're telling us they are against criminals and criminality. Then what's the job of the police? Even if these people are criminals, is the job of the army to arrest criminals, or that of the police? So this is to tell you that these guys are biased. And I'm happy that you listened to that tape. I want you to go back again to listen to that tape on the indicting of the Nigerian army by the Amnesty International extrajudicial reports against the Nigerian army. So what we must do is, the relatives and all those that lost loved ones in with the Operation Python dance in Rivers State and Abia State must form a union, and that union because they must seek for justice. We will help them to seek for justice. They must seek for justice with relevant government agencies and international bodies. We cannot keep quiet. We cannot keep going. They will not go scot-free as long as these protesters are armless. They weren't armed and they were mowed down by their trucks and guns. We will not let that go scot-free. So a union must be formed. You can reach us through africaworldnews@gmail.com so that we can assist in whatever way towards bringing the Nigerian army personnel to book. We need their names of those that are in charge. We will be seeking against them sanctions from proper bodies, and we are going to publish that, including their profile, their family, and wherever they come from. Some of them, their children are abroad, so we want to get them disgraced. They cannot give orders on innocent people just to be killed, and you expect us to keep quiet. We will not keep quiet. We must continue to demand justice. If they can demand justice with fraudulent activities like Chibok girls, why can't we demand justice with the constant killing of our people by soldiers when they are not challenged with arms? I mean, what's the need that we are in a civilian regime? What are we afraid of? So that is very, very important. And we know that apart from that, though they apologize, we've had issues where they even indict themselves. They indicted themselves with the NUJ in Omahia when they invaded the NUJ, Nigerian Union of Justice chapel in Omahia, and they seized laptops, iPods, and materials of journalists. So this is to tell you the kind of people we are dealing with. Buhari and Buratai, these are ethnic jingoists, and they must not be let to go through. We must document these wherever they find themselves. I said it before, even war criminals that killed Jews during the Nazis, they are still being brought to book up to this day. So we are not going to keep quiet on this. You can imagine Nigerian army personnel going to where to a public function without badge, without name, driving trucks without plate numbers, so that they cannot be identified. It happened in Abereba, where the women, and they went as far as removing women's clothes, getting them naked. The women had to march to the traditional rulers' compound in Abereba to complain and ask him if he was the one that invited the military to interrupt their functions. These things are there. The evidence are there. We have them documented, and we are not going to keep quiet about that. There's still evidence on Burattai's appearance before the 5-man panel of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission of Nigeria, in which he was talking about ridiculing a professional body like Nigeria, an important organ of the state. If it is an important organ of the state, the job of the Nigerian army is to protect Nigeria's territorial integrity when it's threatened, and not to shoot innocent and armless civilians protesting, even if they are agitating for their rights. They haven't declared a war on Nigerian army. They haven't. The people that declared a war on Nigerian army are Boko Haram, Boko Haramites, and Boko Haram, as I'm talking to you today, still controls 9 local governments in the northeast, and nothing is happening. That's why there's a caricature, a cartoon going around, going viral, whereby Nigerian army was depicted as a roaring lion, Ataba, whereas in Sambisa Forest was hiding like a kitten. So that's terrible. That's terrible. The Nigerian army that cannot annihilate Boko Haram is feeling so strong against armless protesters, against women gathering for a function in Abreba, against armless agitators for Biafra, against people who ordinarily is using their pen and their head. So this is to tell you that the people in charge are ethnic jingoists. They are religious zealots. Buhari is a religious zealot, and he appointed someone who is going to oil his killing machine, and he's been killing. Look at the way Shiites were massacred in Kaduna for just blocking the road. I mean, and this is the same man who goes to United Nations using Nigeria's time and was talking about Rohingya Muslims and the Palestine. No, a shameless man. I mean, and you Nigerians keep quiet about this. How can you keep quiet about this? Buhari is more interested in what is happening in Myanmar, where they are killing Muslims, whereas he is killing his own people at home. He's not talking about it. He's interested in Palestine being free, whereas he's killing Biafrans, those who are agitating for Biafra Republic. What an irony. I mean, what hypocrisy. Which kind of person is this? And when we say that he's mentally deranged, it looks as if we are insulting him. No, but this mark of mental derangement. If he is okay, will he be doing this? You are a president of a country. You never talk about what your country is offering the world, the new innovation that is coming up in your country. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the globe, my country is offering this to the world. We are doing this. If you go to Aba, or even if you go to Sokoto, or if you go to Lagos, Nigerians are amazing. We are manufacturing this for the benefit of the world. No. Instead, he is using the time for Nigeria, talking about Rohingya Muslim and Palestinians' quest for self-rule. And when we say this person is not fit to lead, it looks as if we are just ordinarily against Buhari. No, Buhari is not fit. Buhari is a daft. He is a daft. He's a fundamentalist. He's a religious zealot. He's just interested in propagating his religion and nothing more. I mean, look at the evidence are abound. The evidence are abound. Look at the way they are killing people over no reason. And you expect us to keep quiet. Why do you expect us to keep quiet? Well, they have shot themselves in the foot and we will not keep quiet. How can you use maximum force against civilians? How can you use maximum force against civilians? It's never happened in democracy. It doesn't even happen under a good military regime, let alone democracy. So we must consign Buhari, Buratai, and the rest of the killers to where they belong. So this is what I want to talk about today. We are gathering facts, evidence about on this extrajudicial killings and the planned termination of the Igbos by Buhari, Buratai, and his bloodthirsty Operation Python Dance commanders. So if you have any evidence, pictures, information, send it to africaworldnews@gmail.com, or you just send it to any of our page. We will take it and compile it where we are compiling others. Thank you for listening to me today. My name is Ukachukwu Okorie. God bless you.